Doy fe de que no hay más Dios que Alá y de que Mahoma es el mensajero de Alá. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu.
What if everything you believe is a lie? For 25 years, Father Theodore Martinez preached the doctrine of the Trinity, until a single dream shook his entire faith to its foundations. Now he faces an impossible choice: hold fast to everything he knows, or risk his marriage, his career, and his entire life to pursue the truth. This is the shocking story of a man lost in the darkness of doubt and reborn in the light of Islam.
The warm spring air of Austin, Texas, filtered through the Gothic windows of St. Michael's Church. Theodore Martinez, the spiritual leader of this sacred place for 25 years, knelt before the altar with the first light of day. His hands trembled over the velvet cover of his daily Bible. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, ... He began his customary morning prayer. But today, the words caught in his throat. For 25 years, he had recited the same prayers, delivered the same sermons, presided over the same rituals. His congregation saw him as an icon of wisdom and unwavering faith. But what about that deep, indescribable restlessness within? Him, the one that disturbed his sleep at night and gnawed at his mind even while preaching? The elusive complexity within the unity of the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit had ceased to be a theological puzzle and had become a wound festering in his heart. Last week, little Emma's question, her eyes shining with innocence, still echoed in his ears. Father Theodore, how can Jesus be fully human and fully God? It doesn't make sense. Theodore had given a technically precise, carefully prepared answer filled with quotes from the Church Fathers. Emma had nodded and left, but something inside Theodore had broken. His own answer hadn't satisfied him. It was just a memorized, dry formula. That night, under the dim lights of the church, slumped on the wooden pews, he had prayed desperately. "O Almighty Creator, dispel this dreadful cloud of doubt about who you are and how I should worship you. Guide me to the truth only. The truth, no matter how arduous the path, no matter the cost. Open my heart, open my eyes, open my mind. Amen." This prayer would unlock the door to the divine intervention that would radically alter his life just a few weeks later. Theodore Martinez's life was woven with faith and service. Born into a Catholic family, he had felt the call to priesthood early on. His seminary years were spent as a fervent student, passionately devoted to theology and scriptural interpretation. When assigned as pastor to St. Michael's Church, he believed he had found his life's purpose. The early years were filled with the congregation's affection and the satisfaction of spiritual service. He married and built a modest but peaceful home with Margaret. They had no children, which freed him to devote all his energy to the church and his flock. But over time, especially in the last 5 years, a quiet revolution had begun in his mind. The squabbles in church council meetings, growing doubts about the church's role in the modern world, but above all, internal questioning of fundamental doctrinal beliefs, the doctrine of the Trinity, and particularly Jesus' divine nature, increasingly troubled him. The concept of 3 in 1 and 1 in 3 always carried a logical tension. The complex explanations of Augustine and Aquinas used to satisfy him, but now they only wearied his mind, failing to speak to his heart. Could Jesus' cry on the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me?" truly be the cry of a God? Could God forsake himself? These questions robbed him of sleep at night and left a chill on his fingertips while preparing Sunday sermons. Question had been the final straw. His prayer that night was an explosion of desperation and sincere seeking. He was no longer praying to maintain the status quo, but to find the truth. This inner storm was invisible from the outside. Every Sunday, the congregation saw the same dignified, wise and affectionate Father Theodore. Yet within him, the foundations of his faith were shaking, searching for a light in the darkness. Yet it was a cold, windy night in March. Theodore, after a grueling church council meeting, had fallen asleep slumped in his library chair, a half-read theology book in his hand. He sank into a deep sleep. He found himself amidst endless golden sand dunes. The sun burned mercilessly in the sky, yet it did not burn him. There was not a single living thing, not a single plant around, only boundless silence and stillness. Then a figure appeared on the horizon. As it drew closer, he saw it was a man wearing a long, white, seamless, and flawless garment. The man's face wasn't clearly discernible, as if behind a veil of tulle, but his presence radiated a deep peace and authority. The man stopped a few steps before Theodore. His lips moved, speaking in a melodic, powerful language Theodore didn't understand. The words were incomprehensible, yet each syllable penetrated Theodore's chest, resonating into the deepest chambers of his heart, echoing a truth that felt familiar, yet whose name he couldn't grasp. It was like hearing a forgotten melody again. The man suddenly turned to Theodore. At that moment, Theodore held his breath. The man's eyes there, deep within them, shone in absolute peace, serenity, and pure love, the very things Theodore had sought all his life, things he couldn't fully grasp even in church, in prayers, in rituals. That gaze pierced his soul. A shudder ran through his body, but it wasn't from fear. It was a shudder born of an overwhelming sense of witnessing. The man silently began walking toward the horizon, disappearing before Theodore's eyes. Theodore woke with a start from his chair. His chest heaved rapidly, his forehead drenched in sweat. The sun hadn't risen yet in the room. The vividness and intensity of the dream had shocked him. Only then did he notice the tears streaming down his cheeks. His heart pounded with a mixture of indefinable elation and deep sorrow. What was that? He murmured into the darkness. Just a dream. A result of stress, fatigue. But a voice inside him shouted powerfully and insistently, "No! This was more. This was a sign." The absolute peace in that man's eyes had seized his soul. It was as if he had seen for the first time what truth looked like. And it was different from what was taught in the church. That thought frightened him. He covered his face with his hands and tried to pray again, but the words seemed to fall into emptiness. The dream had been planted like a seed in his consciousness, and it was about to sprout. The effect of the dream lasted for weeks. Theodore continued his daily duties, but his mind constantly returned to that desert scene, the man in white, and especially those eyes. His inner restlessness had multiplied. By chance, he saw a small notice on the wall of the public library. Austin Interfaith Dialogue Center. The Belief in One God. Reflections in Different Faiths. Speaker, Dr. Ahmed Hassan. Islamic theologian. Islam? The word evoked a strange echo in Theodore. The garment of the man in the dream. Perhaps, maybe this was an opportunity to make sense of the dream? Perhaps studying other faiths would strengthen his own? It was a plausible excuse. On the evening of the event, he was tense as he entered the center's modest hall. There were people of various faiths. Dr. Ahmed Hassan was at the podium, a middle-aged man with a calm demeanor, intelligent, sparkling eyes, and a dignified bearing. His lecture was on the concept of God's oneness Tawhid. Imam Ahmed spoke clearly, logically, and passionately. He explained, using verses and rational proofs, the absolute oneness of God in Islam, that he begets not, nor is he begotten, that nothing resembles him, nothing is equal to him, that everything is dependent on him while he is in need of nothing. Theodore listened, captivated. This was a theology vastly different from the complex formulas of the Trinity, simple, powerful, and reasonable. His heart raced. During the Q&A session, Theodore couldn't help but raise his hand. "Dr. Hassan," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "this belief in absolute oneness, what then is the position of Prophet Jesus?" "Christianity sees him as the Son of God." Imam Ahmed smiled patiently. "Reverend Martinez," he said. Theodore was surprised he knew him. "Islam accepts Jesus Christ as a great prophet, the Word and Spirit of Allah. But he is not God. He is not the Son of God. He is a servant and messenger, created without a father from the Virgin Mary. Allah begets not, nor is he begotten. This is fundamental to his uniqueness and majesty." Lightning struck Theodore's mind. This answer touched directly on the inner contradiction he had carried for years. After the event, he approached Imam Asad. A conversation lasting hours began. God's attributes, destiny, free will, the meaning of worship, prophethood. Theodore found himself not defending Christianity, but learning and questioning with deep curiosity. As the conversation was about to end, Imam Ahmed quietly pulled a small book from his bag. "Father Theodore," he said gently, "perhaps this can help you. This is an English translation of the Quran. At the very least, it allows you to see with your own eyes what Islam actually says. Not from distorted rumors, but from the source." Theodore took the book. Its cover was simple, but it suddenly felt very heavy in his hands. Was his 25-year career as a priest ready to confront what lay within the pages of this small book? His hands trembled slightly. "Thank you, Dr. Hassan," he murmured. "I will read it." That night, he hid the Quran guiltily in his library, among other theological books. The seed of the dream had found a sprout in the real world, that it took Theodore days to pick up the Quran. His demanding pastoral duties on one hand, and a deep fear within him on the other, caused him to delay. Finally, one Thursday evening, while Margaret was at a friend's house, he locked the door, drew the curtains, and sat with the book in his chair. He didn't know where to begin, perhaps opening it at random. His heart pounded as he opened the book. His eyes fell on the heading of the open page, Surah al-Ikhlas, Sincerity, the chapter of purity. Below it were just 4 short verses. Say, He is Allah, the one and only. Allah, the eternal, absolute. He begets not, nor is he begotten, and there is none like unto him. Theodore read these 4 lines, and once more, then once more. With each reading, the words struck his chest. Like a fist, lightning flashing in his mind. This was it. That simple, powerful, undeniable Tawhid faith Imam Ahmed had spoken of. The one and only, no complex triune unity. He begets not, nor is he begotten, directly contradicting the idea of God having a son. There is none like unto him, absolute uniqueness. This was the clarity he had sought for years. This seemed like the source of that peace he saw in his dream. Could the truth be this simple, this powerful, this logical? Tears began to flow uncontrollably. He was crying, but these were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of something long, lost finally being found, a veil of mist suddenly lifting, the weight he had carried in his heart for decades giving way to an indescribable lightness. He pressed the book to his chest and closed his eyes. Imam Ahmed's words echoed in his ears. The oneness of Allah is the heart of Islam. That heart had now touched his own heart. At that moment, the church bells began to ring for the evening service. Sounds that once filled him with peace now felt foreign and distant. Something within him had fundamentally changed. There was no turning back now. His quest was moving in a concrete direction. His research into the Quran and Islam became a secret obsession. He searched topics like the life of Prophet Muhammad, worship in Islam, Tawhid on the library computer, ordered books from reputable sources Imam Ahmed recommended, and had them sent to a non-church P.O. box. The biography of Prophet Muhammad deeply affected him. His humility, justice, mercy, and absolute submission to God seemed to embody all the qualities Theodore sought in an ideal religious leader. The discipline and deep spirituality of prayer, the self-discipline of fasting, the social justice of charity, all appealed to him rationally and spiritually. However, this secret journey brought conflict with the outside world. Congregation. Members began to notice that Father Theodore was less accessible than before, sometimes seeming distracted. The questioning looks of elderly Mrs. O'Reilly. "Father, today's sermon seemed a bit different. You spoke little of the Trinity?" The worried phone call from his young assistant. "Father Martinez, you forgot the youth group meeting, didn't you?" Every father, "Where are you?" question multiplied the weight of the secret growing within him, making him feel like a liar. The hardest part was his wife. Margaret was the first to notice the change in her husband. He no longer shared church matters like before, spent more evenings in the library, and was sometimes lost in thought. One midnight, thinking Theodore was working late, she opened the library door. Theodore was reading from the open Quran on the table, glasses perched on his nose, wearing a small muslin cap. Margaret froze. "Theodore?" she said, her voice trembling with fear and disbelief. What is this? What are you reading?" Theodore startled, trying to close the book quickly, but it was too late. Seeing the shock and hurt expression in Margaret's eyes shattered him. He stood up. "Margaret, that's a Quran, isn't it?" Margaret cut him off, her voice rising. "You, a priest, what are you doing with that? This is heresy. This is betrayal." "Margaret, please," Theodore begged, trying to approach her. "It's not betrayal. It's a search. I'm seeking the truth. Just the truth. You know the restlessness inside me. The truth? The truth is here, in this church, in the Bible." Margaret screamed, dissolving into tears. "Is the devil leading you astray, Theodore? Our prayers, our marriage, our life? Was it all a lie?" "No, Margaret, no." Theodore touched her shoulders, but Margaret recoiled. "Nothing is a lie. I'm still the same Theodore. It's just God might be showing me a different path. Please try to understand." Margaret shook her head, tears streaming. "I don't understand, and I'm scared, Theodore. So scared." She left the room, slamming the door. That night, Theodore lay awake in the library, and Margaret in the bedroom, both contemplating the widening chasm between them. Was the price of truth going to be breaking the heart of the person he loved most? The weeks following that painful night with Margaret were a nightmare for Theodore. An icy silence reigned at home. Margaret wouldn't speak to him except for essential matters. Within the congregation, rumors began to circulate. They said the father was acting strange. This pressure, instead of extinguishing the light within him, strengthened it further. He read the Quran and Islamic sources even more intensely, maintaining his communication secretly from Margaret with Imam Ahmed via email. Imam Ahmed invited him to visit the Austin Islamic Center just to see the environment. One Friday noon, Theodore went to the mosque with great inner conflict and fear. The moment he stepped through the door, his heart pounded as if it would leap out of his chest. The spacious, airy hall was carpeted with clean rugs and a simple mihrab. Men of different nationalities stood quietly in rows, preparing for prayer. Theodore sat in the back rows, leaning against the wall as an observer. The prayer, beginning with the Imam's call of Allahu Akbar, God is greatest, mesmerized him. The harmony of the movements, the congregation moving as one body, the melody of the recited verses, it all created an atmosphere of deep reverence and submission. This was different from the grandeur of church rituals. It was more inward, more personal, yet simultaneously more collective. Theodore's eyes welled up. The peace from his dream was here. The prayer ended, and the congregation began to disperse. As Theodore tried to process the surging emotions within him, an old bearded man, his face lined with smile wrinkles, approached him. The man's eyes bore a striking resemblance to the eyes of the man in Theodore's dream. The same deep peace and wisdom shone within them. "Assalamu alaikum." "Peace be upon you," the old man said with a warm smile. Theodore didn't know what to say. The man continued, as if reading Theodore's inner world. "You are seeking the truth, aren't you, young man? Your heart is restless. There are questions in your eyes." Theodore nodded in astonishment, unable to speak. The old man gently touched Theodore's arm. "Do not fear. Seeking is the first step on the path to truth. Your coming here is no coincidence. Allah has already chosen you. He has opened your way. Just listen to the voice of your heart and submit." The old man walked away with a slight nod as Theodore stared after him in astonishment. Theodore stood frozen in the middle of the mosque hall. Tears were now unstoppable. This was the second unmistakable divine sign after the dream. Meeting Imam Ahmad, the striking impact of Surah al-Ikhlas, and now this old man's words. These could not all be coincidences. This was a signpost. The storm in his heart instantly calmed. He now knew what he must do. Fear gave way to unshakable resolve. The truth was calling him, and he would answer the call. The following Friday, Theodore came to the Austin Islamic Center this time with an entirely different state of mind. His heart was filled with an indescribable calm and a firm resolve. He looked for the old man, but didn't see him. Imam Ahmed greeted him at the door, giving a silent salam and an understanding smile. Theodore asked Imam Ahmad for help learning to perform wudu, ablution. At the faucet, the coolness of the water and the simplicity of the ritual felt like purifying his soul. As the congregation formed rows, Theodore stood this time in the front rows, beside Imam Ahmed. His heart beat fast, but not from fear. It was the excitement of anticipation. After the first takbir, Allahu Akbar, of the prayer, Imam Ahmed turned to Theodore and gently guided him to the front of the mihrab. The attention of the congregation was now fully on Theodore. Theodore stepped before the microphone. The hall fell into absolute silence. He took a deep breath, closing his eyes for a moment. 25 years of a life, his first sermon in church, his marriage vows with Margaret, Emma's question, the desert dream, the weight of the Quran, Margaret's tears, the old man's words at the mosque. All flashed through his mind like a film reel. Then he opened his eyes. The familiar peace shone in them. He raised his hands, palms facing upwards. His voice, shaky at first, but growing stronger and clearer, filled the hall. Ashhadu an la ilaha. I bear witness that there is no God, but Allah ... He paused for a moment. To utter these words meant formally renouncing his past life, his identity, everything. Then a wave of peace washed over him, and he continued, ... wa, ashhadu anna Muhammadan, abdu wa rasuluhu, opening parenthesis ... and I bear witness that Muhammad is his servant and messenger. At that moment, something miraculous happened. That deep, knowing restlessness Theodore had carried for 25 years, that heavy stone on his chest instantly evaporated. In its place flooded an indescribable serenity, an absolute peace, a profound relief, and pure joy he had never tasted. Before, it was as if a long-lost part of himself had been found, as if he had finally come home. Tears of joy and gratitude began to stream down his cheeks. From behind him, the congregation greeted him with a resounding Allahu Akbar. God is greatest, making the moment even more magnificent. Imam Ahmed hugged him, saying, "Welcome, my brother, welcome." Other Muslims came to congratulate him, saying, "As-salamu alaykum, peace be upon you." Theodore, now Abdurrahman, servant of the Merciful, thanked them through tears. Father Theodore had died, and Abdurrahman the Muslim was born. The following Sunday morning, St. Michael's Church was packed. Rumors had spread. Everyone wanted to hear Father Theodore's final sermon. Theodore, wearing his priest's robes for the last time, walked towards the altar with heavy but resolute steps. In the crowd, he saw Margaret's pale face and tear-filled eyes. His heart ached that he did not begin his sermon with the usual, "In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit." Breaking the silence, he went straight to the point. "My dear congregation, my brothers and sisters, I stand before you for the last time today. I will make the hardest speech of my life." Not a sound could be heard in the hall. For years, I carried a spiritual restlessness within me. Questions about God's nature, His relationship with us. His search led me to study the religion of Islam, initially with fear, then with curiosity, and finally with deep faith. A murmur rose from the hall, looks of astonishment, anger, and sorrow. On this journey, Theodore continued, his voice thick with emotion, I discovered the pure Tawhid message of the Quran, the true status of Jesus, and the exemplary life of Prophet Muhammad. Yesterday, Friday, my heart and mind finally found peace, and I became a Muslim. My name is now Abdurrahman. Margaret gasped. A woman in the back began to cry. I am not abandoning you, Theodore emphasized, locking eyes with Margaret. I am only following the call of the truth my Creator has placed in my heart. This church, this congregation, each one of you, will remain a sacred part of my life. But my spiritual journey now follows a different path. I ask for your forgiveness and your prayers for support. After the sermon, a few people came to hug him, saying, We love you, Father, through tears. But most turned away with cold stares, averting their eyes. The church council president informed him in an official, icy tone that his resignation was accepted and he had 1 month to vacate. The church rectory. Margaret left without speaking to him, crying. That evening, when he returned home, he saw Margaret packing her bags. She said she was moving to her sister's for a while. They needed to think about their relationship. Theodore's heart was shattered, but the new peace within him kept him standing. The losses were heavy. His profession, his home, the rectory, the love and respect of most of his congregation, and perhaps his wife. But alongside the losses was the warm acceptance of Imam Ahmed and the mosque community, a new family of brotherhood. They didn't leave him alone during his first Ramadan fast, sharing iftar meals. Being called Brother Abdurrahman helped him embrace his new identity. The losses were painful, but the inner peace and spiritual connection he gained were worth everything. Theodore Martinez was now behind him. A new life as Abdurrahman was beginning. The first step was learning and establishing the 5 daily prayers. At first, the Arabic words were difficult, the movements confusing. But every time he prostrated, his forehead touching the cool carpet, the feeling of closeness to his Lord was stronger than anything he had felt during his Christian years. It was more about listening than speaking, more about submission than conveying requests. Prayer became a sanctuary that disciplined his day and cleared his mind. Imam Ahmed continued to teach him the fundamentals of Islam: wudu, ghusl, ritual bath, the intricacies of song, fasting, calculating zakat, obligatory, charity. Abdurrahman grasped that Islam was not just belief, but a way of life. Eating habits, halal, social interactions, avoiding haram, clothing modest, all were shaped to seek Allah's pleasure. It felt not like a restriction, but a liberation. A restraint of the ego and a prioritization of the soul. His relationship with Margaret remained strained. But over time, Margaret began to notice the profound change in her husband. He was calmer, more patient, more merciful than before. That old restlessness inside him was gone, replaced by a deep serenity. One evening, as Abdurrahman was praying the Maghrib prayer, Margaret watched him from the doorway. That complete submission and prostration, that peace on his face. When Abdurrahman finished and turned around, Margaret smiled faintly, her eyes still sad but softened. You seem more at peace now, Theodore. Abdurrahman, she said, correcting herself. Before, it always felt like something was gnawing at you from within. Now it's gone. Maybe, she added, her voice trembling, maybe this is your true path. It's so hard to understand, but seeing you like this, it's different. This small opening became a beacon of hope for Abdurrahman. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but perhaps, just perhaps, Margaret could also come to understand. This peace in time. Abdurrahman learned something new each day, strengthened his Islamic identity, and looked toward the future, making peace with his past. 5 years later, in Austin, a small, modest building in one of the city's outlying neighborhoods, the Center for Truth and Dialogue. Its director was the former Father Theodore, now fully embraced as Abdurrahman, his beard grayed, a deep peace and glint of experience in his eyes. The center was a haven and learning place, especially for new converts to Islam from Christianity or other faiths, and for those with questions about Islam. Abdurrahman's unique background made him a priceless bridge. His deep knowledge of Christian theology allowed him to understand the barriers in their minds and present Islam rationally and compassionately. Islam completed me, he often told his Revert brothers and sisters. My years as a priest helped me understand the depths of the human soul and the intensity of spiritual seeking. My knowledge of the Bible helped me better appreciate the beauty of the Quran's message and the often corrected misunderstandings. But Islam found my soul. That pure Tawhid belief, the clarity of the Quran, the example of our Prophet, they gave me the most direct, purest way to reach God and worship Him. Every Friday, he delivered the khutbah sermon in the center's small masjid. His sermons were often interwoven with glimpses from his own journey. He addressed truth seekers. Do not fear questioning. Do not fear seeking the truth. If the truth calls you, it will open the most unexpected doors. My door opened with a dream, a Quranic verse, the peace of a mosque. Yours might be different, but whoever seeks sincerely will never lose their way. Allah never abandons the servants who turn to Him. As he spoke, the same deep peace and unwavering faith that had shone in the eyes of the desert dream man sparkled in his own. Margaret, after a long and difficult process, had chosen to stay in Abdurrahman's life. She hadn't become Muslim, but she had accepted her husband's transformation and the peace it had brought him. They had a modest but loving home together. She sometimes even attended the center's iftar dinners, watching with pride Abdurrahman's passion for helping people. The losses were irreplaceable, but the inner peace and new meaning gained filled Abdurrahman's life. The journey from Theodore to Abdurrahman is a powerful testament to the universal and timeless nature of the truth-seeking soul. This story shows how the truth, touching the heart sometimes through the most extraordinary, unexpected means, a dream, a page in a book, a stranger's words, possesses the power to challenge even deep-rooted beliefs, ingrained habits, and even the most cherished relationships. Changing faith, especially for someone in a deeply rooted religious role like Theodore, is not an easy decision. Social stigma, professional losses, fears of familial breakdown, identity crisis, all are paid as a heavy price. But Abdurrahman's story proves that no matter how heavy these costs, once inner peace and spiritual fulfillment are found, no external hardship can overshadow that deep personal happiness. True liberation ultimately comes through submission to the Creator. This story is not just the story of Theodore Martinez, Abdurrahman. It is the story of every sincere seeker who feels a void in their heart, who seeks meaning beyond rote learning, who wanders the boundaries of tradition. It is the story of the human soul's inherent desire to ultimately return to the One, and only Allah guides whom He wills to a straight path, and He is the one who guides those who turn to Him. Quran, Ash-Shira 42-13.